GoForThe2.com in with the Week 15 rapid fire selections. If you want all the top 25 selections and picks, tune into College Football Today, MSG Network, MSG Plus, Sports Grid Network, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern this Saturday, December 5th. Check it out. We go through all the top 25 battles, the under-the-radar games, fantasy props, first half selections, totals, and sides. Great show for 2 straight hours. Then once the kickoffs at 12 o'clock, in-game live for 5 hours. SportsGrid.com, we go through all the in-game wagering perspective, what transpires throughout the day in terms of the football aspect as well. We look for value, so tune in this coming Saturday, December 5th. Sports Grid Network starts on MSG Plus, moves over to SportsGrid.com. 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern, College Football Today and in-game live. Let's jump right into the Big 12 matchup. Oklahoma on the road against West Virginia. Oklahoma's won 8 straight in the series, won this ball game last year, 52-14 with Jalen Hurts. They won the last 4 in the series by an average margin of victory of 24.2 points per game. You look at this game last week for Oklahoma, struggled from an offensive perspective with the front seven of Baylor and Dave Aranda. I mentioned it on College Football Today. Dave Aranda did have a good game plan in place as defensive coordinator with LSU. He was familiar with the personnel of Oklahoma and dialed up a great game plan to keep Baylor within the number. Now Oklahoma goes on the road to face West Virginia that did not play well on the road against Iowa State. I was dead wrong in terms of the assessment for West Virginia. Iowa State started fast with Breece Hall, worked off a play action with Brock Purdy, and they dominated that matchup. They limited Jared Dagey and the passing attack of West Virginia to short to intermediate routes. Did not give up a lot of chunk plays, and that's why Iowa State ran away with that matchup in dominating fashion. West Virginia comes back home. They are a much better home team than they are a road team this year. 5-0 straight up. Statistically, defensively, lights out at home. 67 rushing yards allowed to opposing offenses on the ground. Only 161 in the back end in terms of the passing defense. And I think that's the matchup going up against Spencer Rattler and Oklahoma's offense. Oklahoma still wants to run the football with Stevenson. That's been the MO and the game plan over the last few weeks against Oklahoma State, against Baylor. They're more of a methodical offense, utilizing their heavy offensive line. That goes into the strength of West Virginia's front seven. I still like the matchup. I think West Virginia could force Spencer Rattler into long third down situations, especially playing at home. West Virginia will be into this matchup. There's also the potential look ahead for the Iowa State game between Oklahoma. Are they creeping ahead to the Big 12 championship game? That's a possibility. Still have a young quarterback. He's a redshirt freshman. That's a concern as well going on the road. I know he's played well in Lubbock. Morgantown, a step up. West Virginia traditionally plays much better at home than they do on the road. I think they cover this 13.5, 14-point number Saturday afternoon against Oklahoma. Another big battle takes place in the Pac-12. Washington on the road against Oregon. Both teams coming off a loss. Oregon has won 2 straight in the series by 3.5 points per game. They've dominated the series in recent years, won 14 of 16 straight up. Won this ball game last year, 35-31 in Seattle. Justin Herbert outdueled Jacob Eason in that matchup. When you travel on the road, you need to be able to run the football, force turnovers. This is Washington's first true road game of the year. I still like them. That's what they're doing. They can still run the football with McGrew, Pleasant, and Newton. That offensive line, to me, is still physical. They're +5 in turnover margin. More importantly, offensive line playing very well. 4 games, 1 sack allowed. I know Dylan Morris struggled last week. The passing attack struggled against a blue-collar team in Stanford. But I think from a rivalry perspective, an athletical standpoint, I like the Huskies on the road in this ballgame. Oregon hasn't showed me anything to think that they should be favored. I know they've dominated the series, but you lose a game to Cal, you lose a game to Oregon State, teams that you should have beat. This was supposed to be a top 10 team, even though they lost 3 or 4 starters out of the secondary. They lost Sewell off the offensive line, lost Justin Herbert. I think Washington could go toe-to-toe with them. I think they're in this ball game from start to finish, and Washington, I think, does strike the upset Saturday afternoon in Eugene. Another big battle takes place in the Big 12. Baylor's won 2 straight over Oklahoma State by 11 points per game, dominated this matchup last year, 47-25. Baylor's not the same team that they were last year. They lost 10 starters on that defense. Dave Aranda, new scheme, playing much better in recent weeks, but they still can't run the football effectively, still can't convert on third downs, an inconsistent bunch. It's been Charlie Brewer and nobody else. John Lovett, Treston Ebner, they're inconsistent still in the rushing attack. Can they get it done against Oklahoma State? That basically has looked inconsistent as well. They lost that matchup on the road in Fort Worth. This is back-to-back road games for the Oklahoma State Cowboys, but I think that they show it this coming Saturday on the road. Traditionally, Baylor's played them pretty tough in recent years, but I think from a schematic standpoint, a speed advantage, you got to give Oklahoma State the perimeter in terms of their passing attack going up against the secondary of Baylor. I think those wide receivers can break out this coming weekend. It's the last game of the year. Mike Gundy, I give the coaching advantage to over Dave Aranda. I think defensively as well, from a speed standpoint, Oklahoma State's defense can run sideline to sideline and contain Charlie Brewer and that passing game, along with the rushing attack of Baylor's running back. So I think they're put into long third downs. They dial up some blitz packages, and that's still the concern for Baylor right now. You look at their games, 8 games, 27 sacks allowed in terms of the offensive line. I do not like that matchup. Give me Oklahoma State. The line opened up, I believe it's 6. It's in the area of 4.5, 5 right now in some books here in New Jersey, like Oklahoma State to win this ball game by double digits. Just think they show this coming Saturday. They show the team that they should have been all season long on the road in Waco. Another big battle takes place in the ACC between Virginia Tech and Virginia. Would you believe that Virginia knocked off the Hokies last year in Charlottesville due to Bryce Perkins' mobility? He made big plays with his arms, with his legs, dynamic effort. Now Brennan Armstrong and the crew coming off a dominating win over Boston College. Djokovic didn't play, Grosso did, but he threw for over 500 yards on that defense in Virginia. Virginia's another team, has not won on the road this year. 0-3 on the road in terms of their ACC competition. More importantly, they have not won in Blacksburg since 1988. I know Virginia Tech's lost 4 straight, did not look good against Clemson, but I think they have the more physical offensive line, not sold in terms of the secondary for Virginia. I think from an athletic standpoint, the Hokies have more team speed. The offensive line can wear down a smaller defensive front in Virginia. They can run the football with Khalil Herbert. I like Hendon Hooker. He's a mobile quarterback, can make some plays on the perimeter of Virginia's defense. This is asking a lot. They should have won this game a couple of years ago in Blacksburg. A critical turnover in the end zone allowed Ryan Willis and the crew to pull out that victory at home. It was a miracle finish, but Virginia Tech still covered. They're laying a low number, lined open up at 2.5. It's down to 1.5. I think Virginia Tech gets right in this matchup. They run the football, manageable third downs, force some turnovers against Brennan Armstrong, and the Hokies do gut out a victory, 7-10 points over Virginia this coming weekend. Another big battle takes place in Arkansas. Alabama dominated LSU. Another game I was dead wrong on in terms of the assessment for LSU. Think that game turned on the first quarter play when LSU had a 4th and 1 on Alabama's 15-yard line. You got to dial up something different. A rollout, get your quarterback out in space, give him a read option to score points. That was a very critical drive for the LSU offense, but more importantly, the defense. If you could have scored on that drive, I'm not saying LSU would have won, but I think they would have been well within the 29.5 point number last weekend. They couldn't get it done. Defense looked unenthused. Devonta Smith broke out. Mac Jones broke out. Unbelievable performance. Now they go on the road to face Arkansas, another gutty crew. They've been playing well, covered again against Missouri, put up 48 points, lost that matchup 50-48. A couple of years ago, you remember Alabama went in as a 34.5-point underdog favorite, won that ball game by 34. Arkansas actually covered that number. You have two games that Alabama played rivalry. Iron Bowl against Auburn. They also played last week on the road against LSU. Now they go back on the road to face Arkansas with the SEC championship game looming. They definitely win. We know that. But I don't know if they cover this 32-point number. I think they rest their starters for the SEC championship game. Don't want to hurt anyone before they play Kyle Trask and Kyle Pitts. Alabama wins, but somehow, some way, Arkansas keeps it within the 32-point number this coming Saturday. Final game is the best game of the day, Army and Navy. What can you say about this? Navy won this matchup 31-7 last year. Army coming off 2 weeks of prep. Line opened up at 5. It's up to 7. We know why. It's a home game for the Cadets in this matchup. Usually played in Philly. This game is played in West Point. Extra week of prep. Navy does not look good. Lost 4 straight. But their defense is playing well, and they played some solid teams. They played SMU. They played Memphis. They played Tulsa. 3 teams that are very good in terms of the American Athletic Conference, and they went toe-to-toe with them. They lost to SMU by 14 points, lost to Tulsa by 13, lost to Memphis by 3. You look at the defense overall, only allowing the last 2 games 2.8, 2.9 yards per carry. They know the triple option. I think they're a live dog in this matchup. I think Navy on the road strikes the upset. I think it'll be a close game. I think it's a high-scoring game, though. It's been trending to the under. Line opened up at 41. They banged it down to 38.5. Navy upsets Army. I think it's like in the area 24-21. The midshipmen get it done in West Point this coming Saturday. See you on the 5th. College Football Today and In-Game Live. Have a great weekend, everyone.